Dr. Laura Graye is a metaphysician and visionary scientist practicing the art of medical intuition. Laura has received a doctorate in natural medicine, a master's of science in veterinary medicine, a certification in energy medicine, and a PhD which focused on consciousness and quantum medicine. Dr. Graye has clinical practices in both Boston and Nashville and is the founder of the website Medigraytion, something I'm very excited to learn more about today. Since she was a child, Laura had voracious appetite for exploring consciousness, and today she devotes herself to helping others witness and optimize the remarkable magic of vibrational medicine, the powerful role energy plays in our reality, and how we can all tap into consciousness to improve our health and life. Intrigued? Me too. Let's get started. Thank you so much for being here with us, Dr. Graye. Before we get started, I always like to pause and discuss why you are doing what you're doing and what it is that you do. What is your why behind Medigraytion?
Yeah, that's a great question. My why is very personal. My own son was born neurally normal, and then at about 9 months, I started to see, between 9 and 11 months, started to see like a indication of what he was able to do. He had maybe 1 or 2 words, and then built up to maybe 6 words, and then really dropped off and slid into the spectrum. And so when that happened, I wanted to do everything I could, as every parent does, to figure out. And I went and, we did changes in his food and made sure no toxins and all of those things. Mm-hmm. But one thing that I wasn't seeing, and that I just had a sense that I could do, was actually use our deep connection and sort of synchronize our brains and role model, just like, as I was showing him how to use a spoon, I thought, could my brain actually show him how to use his brain? Could he sync up with my neurons to his neurons? Or could he sync his neurons to my neurons? Mm-hmm. And I knew that I had the ability to change my own neuroplasticity using my consciousness. And so that's really my why. That was my why on Medigrations. And then as I really recovered him, and he recovered himself from the spectrum, I ended up seeing that it was so powerful. And even today, I work with a lot of children who do personalized medigrations, where they use meditation and they move into their bodies, and they actually change what's going on for them physiologically.
Wow. Okay. So I didn't even know all about that part before when I was writing my questions, but I had been wondering, I've always wondered how you kind of get children, especially children who are going through something like health related, to tap into meditating. How did you do that?
So the children's meditations that I do are personalized. So they're based on and I am, I guess first and foremost, I'm a medical intuitive. So that's an important piece of how I design things, in that I am able to tap into the child's brain that I'm working with, and actually be able to find the level of consciousness in which they can work and where they would be. So for instance, if you're working with someone, I was just thinking of a little boy that I just recorded a metigration for last week, and he was working on his problem actually was, and he requested this for his problem, was perfection. So he's got levels of OCD. Mm-hmm. And so he's 9 years old, and we did a story around going into the zoo and finding an animal in the zoo. And we made his whole body the zoo. And then we found the animal that was working at being perfect, which for him, I interviewed him before, was a hippo. And so we created where he was the zookeeper and he went into the hippo's head, which was his brain, and he began to help the hippo. And one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that the imagination is the bridge from the conscious brain to the unconscious or the subconscious, whichever term you use. So using imagination for children is a brilliant way for them to access their autonomic nervous system and access and make those changes.
Wow.
And like, when I saw the name of your podcast, The Brain Possible, I was like, she has got that. That is the key, is that what a brain sees and feels and believes is possible is what is possible. That is, our limitations are where our brains will be limited, and our possibility is where it is possible.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So all of your work with children is custom, essentially? Must be, right?
Yeah, right. At this point it is. I am putting together a children's series. So Medigraytion is an online streaming site where at this point adults can go in, and if you have thyroid issues, you can listen to the hypothyroid medigrations. If you have diabetes, you can listen to diabetes. In fact, you can listen to any of them because they all have a level of consciousness. So even if you have diabetes, you can move in and really strengthen your pancreas, let's say. And also the emotions that are bound in pancreas. So pancreas is really about joy and abundance. So for instance, someone who is struggling to feel a sense of joy and abundance could go into the diabetes series and work on bringing that internal joy and abundance versus, going out and trying to find joy and abundance outside of us. But I am going to do a children's series on metigration. At this point, yes, I do personalized metigrations, and I do a lot with, speaking of diabetes, a lot with juvenile diabetes, kids, and they are amazing. These kids are amazing how they move in and they will name their pancreas and work with their beta cells. It's just remarkable.
Aww. Wow, that's awesome.
And the other thing, Emily, that I do want to say that is really, really incredible is I do a lot of personalized metigrations for children and for the parents of children, because particularly the mothers, because our mitochondria, that DNA is linked and handed down, but also all of our DNA is handed down mother and father. So there is a true energetic genetic link from body to body and mind to mind. So a parent can, with the right intention, a parent can really, really move into and help their child change their physiology, strengthen their pancreas, strengthen their brain, strengthen their neurology, shift that.
Wow, that's awesome. I wish I knew about that years ago when I was working with my little guy when he was sick. But I think this is good for all kids, because all kids are going up and down in their emotions and their struggles, and as they move into being adolescents and school and fears and all sorts of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, before I move forward, I wanted to pause. What is a medical intuitive?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. So I really believe we are all our own, first and foremost, medical intuitives. So the definition of a medical intuitive is having an intuitive sense that of what is ailing the mental, emotional, or physical body. And a medical intuitive, in the term that it's used, and spiritual. I don't separate spiritual because I do experience life as fully spiritual, not some separate, experience of spirituality. But a medical intuitive is someone who's able to vibrationally feel when something isn't aligned in another person. And that's kind of the easiest way to describe it. But I think we are all our best medical intuitive when we actually feel into and deeply intuitively can tap into what's going on for us.
Wow. And how do you know? You just know I've heard this before, multiple people and health coaches often, some of them I've heard say that they are, oh no, medical intuitive, but I've also heard, what's it called?
Oh, empath. Yeah,
Empath.
yeah, empath. Yes, yeah, yeah. So, an empath is someone. My definition of an empath is someone who has mirror neurons. That a lot of their neurons have essentially been allocated to pick up the energy, particularly the emotional energy, which includes the chemistry of another person,
Okay.
and bring that information back into their body and decipher it, translate it into this is what's going on for another person.
Okay, so medical intuitive is more seeing what doesn't align in maybe the body and mind. And then an empath is someone who is noticing or feeling the emotions.
Yeah, and I would say the medical intuitive has all three: mental, emotional, physical. Okay. And the empath is focusing on emotional.
Okay. Well, thanks for clearing that one up for me.
Yeah.
So what are the biggest misconceptions about the human mind that you hear?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception, and that misconception or almost non-conception.
Yeah. Blind spots. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is the biggest non-conception is the fact that we are so powerful, absolutely powerful. This is what, if I had to say, though, the biggest kind of shift in our awareness that I would love to see the world and humanity experience is that there is a vibration. If you can imagine closing your eyes and imagine that there is a vibration running through us at all times. And that vibration is consciousness. It runs through us and it is invisible. And it can either the driver's seat or the passenger seat. When it's a passenger seat, it just allows our sort of own separate mind to create our life and our thinking. And we work at the neural level. We work at an electrical and physical and chemical level. And then consciousness, that vibration that is just moving through us, almost like a beautiful rain, just running through our bodies, running through everything, running through the trees and the buildings, all of that is just moving through us. And if it's the passenger, it's just taking notes and responding and sending that out to this collective consciousness, this collective oneness. When you bring it in and you offer it the role of being in the driver's seat, it actually brings the power of what it can do for your humanness as it's running through you. So you now have an ability to use that consciousness to change the cells that it's running through.
Wow. Do you find most people are in the passenger seat all the time?
I would say, pretty much. Yeah, it is.
I'm sitting here thinking, like, where am I at right now?
Right. Yeah. To be honest, most people's consciousness is in the passenger seat, and then getting in the driver's seat, which is, that's, I think, where my medical intuitive, I don't think maybe I came in with the choice. My consciousness just showed up in the driver's seat and was like, we're just ahead. We're heading in this direction. And so, not that I haven't had my complete amount of unconscious moments, for sure, when I've thrown it out into the passenger seat, but it's a brilliant experience when you allow that consciousness to move in and shift things in your brain.
Okay, so and that can happen through meditation, I take it.
It can happen. It happens through meditation, through imagery, through visioning, through just getting grounded in your body. Mm-hmm. When you're grounded in your body, you can tap into that consciousness.
Can you tell me more about what medical meditation is? Because until I found your site and was looking through it, I had never, I mean, I had heard of people doing meditations. In fact, my brother-in-law had a horrible psoriasis, and he told me what he did was visualize it, like he would look at it and visualize it shrinking. And he did that every day. And he showed me pictures, and it actually shrunk.
I love it.
But until that's the kind of the most of the extent I'd heard, but I had never seen a meditation app or website like yours that was just kind of medical.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I want you to imagine that when you were a little baby and sitting in a high chair, and you needed to pick up a Cheerio, and you didn't have the neural firing and wiring yet to do that. You didn't have the fine motor skill. And so your brain began to teach your body and the muscles how to pick up a Cheerio. And over time, you were able to pick up a Cheerio, and then a pen, and then, or first a crayon and then a pen. And now you have all these fine motor skills. Mm-hmm. So that's one pathway that your brain began to make. What medical meditation is using that same ability of the human mind. Rather than moving out and grabbing a Cheerio, it's moving in and changing something, building wiring inside the body and communicating to the cells of the liver or the pancreas or the insula or the, somewhere in the brain to actually make changes. And as you do that, like in your brother's case, you use some vision, visual, like he just envisioned the actual spot becoming smaller. Likely that's how he did it. Mm-hmm. And then the medical metigrations, they move in and they actually use consciousness to have conversations with the cells. So it's not just running through neural, it's actually recognizing that cells have the same access to consciousness. So I'll be really careful. The cells, well, I actually have the experience of cells being very conscious and being able to move through. But even if someone has a limited, if we have a scientist listening and saying, no, cells aren't conscious, then I would argue, okay, I'll go to that smaller view. And I would say, they may not themselves be conscious, but they have consciousness running through them. That vibration and that consciousness can change them. So the medical piece is using your mind to move into your body and shifting your physiology by connecting to the cells in your body.
Wow. Yeah. I had a chance to listen to one from the digestive section, because I think I was like, these all look good, but that one's probably an area my gut needs a lot of healing still.
Yeah,
it was interesting.
Those are too fast. I need to redo those. Did you feel they were too fast?
No, I didn't. I kept thinking, though, am I doing this right? Like I'm trying to sit there and imagine everything, and I wonder if that is just the way it starts until you build that muscle. I was reading some of the science on your website, some of the great articles you have linked. And one of them was talking about the changes in when looking at an MRI of people who have done, 40,000 hours of meditation. So master meditators, and how their brain looked different than someone who doesn't meditate.
Yeah. And you're right. I don't think you were saying this, but I don't think it takes 40,000 hours. What I do think it takes is a level of sort of moving in and building those wiring and firing, kind of changing sort of where it is. So there is a building.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was wondering when I read that. I was like, okay, so it's like strength training or anything, you have to just keep doing it to get happen.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what's the difference, or is it the same, mindfulness meditation?
So it's what I actually feel about, I think there is a mindfulness to it. What I really like about Medigraytion, and more importantly, what the people who sign up and are members of Medigraytion say, is that they are really high brain people. They are big thinkers. They want something to do, and they've actually had difficulty doing mindful meditation because it's just a quieter place, where Medigraytion gives your brain, that fast thinking brain, something to do. You know, there's a puzzle in it. You're moving somewhere in your body. You're connecting things. You've got friends down in your body. You're talking to the liver. So there's a really remarkable zone that Medigraytion can take someone who's like, I constantly think I've never been able to meditate. So yeah. I guess the difference would be, I find mindfulness meditation to be amazing, but harder to kind of slow the brain. And I find Medigraytion easier to actually click into, but maybe a little bit, you're really working on something. You're really working to change something. So maybe harder in the sense that, you know, you're not going to see the changes in a day. Although if you recognize and feel you have the possibility to make those changes in a day, I do believe you can.
Okay. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so how can you heal yourself through consciousness? Can you try in mayman's terms explain that, how that works? I've heard about it from all kinds of people, not just, you know, health gurus or holistic minded natural type people, but all kinds of CEOs of companies and friends who aren't natural in any, but they're like, meditation has saved me. And they're even recommending it in big companies now to their employees.
Yeah. And I'm going to go further because your audience is parents of children. So,
yes.
So we're really looking, maybe, yes, absolutely, one can heal oneself through meditation. I'm expanding that to say that a parent can actually, through meditation, help their child's, not just their brains, but their bodies. We are one, we are connected. There have been study upon study. There is, and I can send it to you. It was a study, in fact, hang on. I'm going to look up the exact.
Thank you. Yeah, that's so awesome, because a lot of times parents aren't sure what they can do. And this is something that, you know, could be in their hands and they can do it right from their home.
Right. So there was an article in Science Direct, and it was brain to brain synchrony. And it's tracking real world neurology, where they had a classroom and they basically said, you know, think of yourself as teams, and they put the little patches on the heads of all of the kids. And then they had a group that were not, they said, you're working as individuals. And the brain waves of the kids working in teams, after a short period, began to synchronize. And so it's very clear what we're seeing in science is that brains working together actually begin to synchronize. And so when you have a parent who is, and I believe you don't need to be laying next to, you could be across the world, but if you are lucky enough to be laying next to it, if your child is in the hospital or in school or somewhere else, you can synchronize and invite your child's brain to synchronize to the highest vibration, to the highest level of healing. And you asked for a very sort of layman imagining. You don't need to even see or understand what your brain or brain waves, or should I be in beta or alpha? No, you actually can just do it by color, by moving into your brain and bringing the highest level of, let's say, white light, which is all of the vibrations, and bringing new energy to the brain. You can facilitate setting an intention depending on what's going on for your child. setting an intention to seal the blood-brain barrier, to release a virus, to release, for instance, epilepsy, to start to focus on the areas that have been burned out by the epilepsy, the firings. You can create health in the different brain cells, and you don't need to be a neurologist. You can do it by as beautifully as bringing, the hippo example that I was giving.
Yeah.
So you can bring love into your brain and have your child's brain and connect to your child's brain.
Wow.
I think one of the stories that I didn't share, but which has built an enormous piece of metigration, is that in 2015, my sister, who was completely healthy at 48 years old, collapsed at the Smithsonian Institute in DC. And out of the blue, she was, brought to the hospital, and it was found that she had 19 brain tumors and 4 tumors in her lungs. And she was stage 4 lung cancer. And out of nowhere, healthy, non-smoker. And so we put together a group of 17 people, which at some weeks it was 4 people, other weeks it was 17 people, who met on the phone every week. And we began imagining these tumors shrinking, sealing the blood-brain barrier. This was a person who the doctor said, we don't give only 6 weeks to live, but she should get her things in order. She's got 19 tumors in her brain. And we got together, and my sister is alive, cancer-free. We are 6 years out, we are 6 years out this July. And there is no doubt she did have she did do some chemotherapy and a small bit of cyberknife, but essentially all of us believe that we helped strengthen her immune system, shrink the tumors, and really role modeled for her brain what our brains were doing and bringing her brain back to health as a family and friends who loved her.
Wow. You just gave me chills all over the place.
Yeah,
That's such an amazing story.
Thank you. Yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So for parents out there, there's so much you can do for your child's brain. Just laying in bed, instead of worrying, instead of grieving, actually connecting and guiding and teaching.
Wow. That's powerful. I can't wait to practice this with all my kids and myself.
Yeah.
Are there any studies that say what percentage of the human mind's capacity to heal itself is tapped into typically?
Yeah. So I guess, I just read the other day someone saying that whole idea that we only use 10% of our brain is actually not true. I think what we've got is my sort of little theory. I'm not out trying to prove this theory, but we've got a universe, and the universe is 95%, 5% physical, 95% invisible. That's not hocus pocus. That's, astronomers and cosmologists are saying that. And so the brain has a 95% level of invisible understanding. And I think that it is that piece, that invisible world, that we are able to tap into and use that power. What always surprises me, and I'm kind of getting off your question, but what surprises me is that there are close to probably 10 billion people who believe in love, who believe in the experience of love.
You cut out for a second. How many?
I was thinking worldwide, we've got 7.5 people, and I hope that we've got 7.5 people who believe or who feel an essence of love.
Right.
And love is invisible. If I said to you, show me proof, physical proof that you love your child, there's no way to really capture love.
Yeah.
Yet everyone believes in it. So where I I sort of trip up on why are people limited in believing that there is so much invisible energy in the world to be tapped into that is making and showing up in our lives.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's the amount of the brain that I think is just able to burst through limitations.
Thank you. Okay, so I didn't see anything about this particularly on your website, but one of the things that I recently have learned and kind of actually I get it now and believe it is that the body can't actually heal if it's in a sympathetic state, right? Like fight or flight.
Oh, okay, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
And I think one of the reasons that I learned this and kind of accepted it because it was for myself, but my health coach has been trying to get me to do meditation, I'm wondering, is because she's like, you can take all the supplements and do all these things, but you won't heal if your body is too stressed out. And you have to enter a parasympathetic state.
Right. Yeah. So with all due respect to your health coach, I always worry when someone says you won't or you can't, because that to me is almost that the doctor saying, I'm sorry, you only have this long to live, and it locks. It's what is that called when it's the not the placebo but the nocebo effect of when a doctor says, these are the statistics, only 5% can be cured. That's a nocebo effect where then that the human who's told that actually holds that and kind of puts themselves into a sympathetic, oh my gosh, I can't heal unless
you're right.
Right.
You're right.
You're in terror. But what I think their intention is to say that so for those who don't understand sympathetic versus parasympathetic, the easiest is this: the parasympathetic is a rest and digest. It's a calming. It's when our body's slow. Okay. And the sympathetic is the fight or flight, or the fight, flight, freeze, or a fourth one that I have introduced into the world, which is fuse. And fuse is for a whole different, but it's when we actually are in terror and we fuse to another person's. You'll see that in codependence. We're fusing our mirror neurons onto somebody else's system and reading what's going on for them, which is a lot of where we're seeing anxiety. But that's for a different day. However, that is a big piece of what's happening in the sympathetic, is a terror in the system. And so if you look at the physiology of that, your immune system is in defense when you're in the sympathetic. It's fighting, it's ready and armed to go. And so if we look at that, the immune system saying there is something wrong, and healing is the opposite, which is we are in homeostasis and everything is okay. Yeah. So there is that. But I do think that there is a way. I actually have a Medigraytion in the anxiety series specifically on balancing the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. And because the nervous system and the immune system are literally two roads running right next to one another, giving one another constant information, it is when you calm that nervous system, the immune system calms, and then you are able to better heal and more easily heal.
Oh, okay. And thank you for being so forward. I appreciate that. You explaining it so well to me, because this is something I've been, trying to grasp myself, and realizing also calming myself and meditating and bringing myself to a parasympathetic state, being able to tap into that is going to help my children
Yes,
to do that.
And even though we've spent a lot of time on the idea of meditation, specifically medical meditation, metigration, I believe that we each have our individual form of meditation, which may not be necessarily laying there, certainly may not be laying there oming. It may really, or even going into the body and doing this physiology. You know, meditation is songwriting for songwriters and singing for singers and painting for artists. So it is finding that zone that is that you find yourself most embodied and most grounded in yourself.
Wow. Yeah, I agree with that too. I also love music. I think it's very therapeutic.
It's so amazing.
Because it can make you feel something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What is quantum wave science? I saw that quite a bit on your site. And also I've heard it before. And I even used to use this quantum wave laser, cold laser on my son. And so I'm like wondering, I don't know, is that related? Quantum wave? Can you explain?
Sure. I'm going to go really simple. Quantum is everything invisible, essentially. You know, that's a really simple. The quantum scientist would probably want to strangle me by me going down to that simplified place. But it is the best way to describe it is the invisible world and its effects on the physical world. So you get really into it that you've got an atom and protons, electrons, neutrons, and then you break that down and there are quarks, and you could get into string theory. But for a person to understand, the quantum world is the invisible world of wavelengths and energy, vibrations that are all around us, in us, and make up the physical world. That if you just keep breaking down, if you look at something, even if you look at the microphone you're talking into, that is not a solid piece. If you continue to go down into that microphone, down into the atoms that it's making, those are vibrating. And that vibration starts to bring you into the quantum world. The most important piece. Whoa, I should say this. What's so powerful about the quantum world is this idea that it is affected by the observer. So it is in consciousness that the vibration of everything, as the observer looks at, let's say, your microphone, that microphone is vibrating in one way as you look at it. If I joined you and looked at your microphone with you, the vibration would change. So it's changed by the observer, which is what mindfulness and meditation is doing, is using the quantum field as the observer to move in and change the physiology.
Wow. It's all tied in together, all energy.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
What is the most important part of using the conscious mind to heal the brain in your mind?
Like you've got it, brain possible. The most important piece is that you feel that it's possible, that even if it's just you hope that it's possible. A lot of people come to me and you know, they are in a dire place. I don't know that I believe in this, but I hope it works. But that's the biggest is recognizing the possibility. And then I think the next piece is moving in and erasing the unconscious beliefs that it's not possible. That's what will happen is you'll sort of find that in your front of your brain, you believe it's possible. Yet we are part of a culture that has indoctrinated us into limitations. And so going into the brain and finding those maps in your brain that have been laid down by you about what isn't possible, and erasing those maps. which you
Wow.
can do through a medical meditation, moving in and actually erasing those maps and saying, I don't want those in my brain anymore.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. And that's the perfect answer. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the Brain Possible community to be complete that I haven't touched on?
You've done an amazing job. I can't think of anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, where can people find out more about you and your work? I know your website, and you can get the first episode of every series for free. You can try those, right?
Yeah.
And then do you work with people virtually? Does that work? You
I
said it.
do. Yeah, I have a clinical practice. So Medigraytion is at metigration.com. It's just like the word meditation, but it's got Medigraytion,
Mm-hmm.
metigration.com. And that's one place to try those out. And then I do have a clinical practice where I work with people one-on-one, identifying what's going on and where they may have mental, emotional, and physical issues that they're sort of in their unconscious. That's my expertise, is looking into the unconscious and finding those. And that's at lauragraye.com. And that Graye has an E on the end, GRAYE.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, I don't think that I have anything else, but I'm going to enjoy exploring your website. I was so excited to see it because I am a member of, I think I have several different meditation apps. The one I've used the most, which I don't use a lot because I don't go as much as I should, but Calm.
Oh, that's such a great, I follow them on Instagram. Such a great meditation site. Emily, there is one other thing that I think, I sort of touched on it, talking about my experience with my sister and friends and family. But again, for the parents and, with these kids, and I think you can really remember that experience of your parents and probably Matt's parents, like, what can we all do to help? And I think one of the things, I've had upwards of 167 people on a friends and family metigration, in which someone with a child who is sick, we get all together and call in on a huge conference call. And we've had 167 people doing a metigration that's recorded. And it's unbelievable, the power of what that group and moving in and changing that child's physiology. And then that gets sent out, and everyone on the call listens for days, weeks, months, years, moving that until the child is healed.
Wow. I saw that. Okay, so is that, I don't remember exactly what it was called on the website, but I saw something where it said friends and family. Is that what that is?
That's a friends and family. And it's such a great gift for people who are, and what I have done is, it's a certain price, and no matter how many people you have on it, and everyone gets that metigration out afterwards. So I think it's like we think about, oh my gosh, my friend just found out that their child has this or this or that, or, my sister's son is, what can I do?
Wow.
And, flowers are beautiful, but, really bringing your energy and putting something like that together for someone. People have been so touched by someone.
That's amazing.
Buying a metigration for them.
Wow. I am going to keep that one in mind for the unforeseen circumstances that come up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's beautiful. And as someone who has gone through a child being sick in a hospital, people don't know what to do, and people always wonder what they should do.
Yeah.
And then often people have come to me to say, I have a friend whose child just got diagnosed with something or another. And what can I do? Do you have any ideas? And so I've written like a couple blog posts about those things, but I never heard of this and I love it. Love it. Like the best thing you can do.
And I really feel like that. And what's even better is as each person is on the call, there is a healing happening to each individual because you are bringing your body to a higher vibration first and foremost. Then everybody gets a healing on the call. As well as, even when we're doing parent to child, that parent is being healed.
How do you do these? Via Zoom or something?
So the big friends and family are done with that free conference call, which thank you, free conference call. Amazing.
Oh,
Yeah. And everybody calls in, the number goes out, there's some administrative, get all the emails together, or people put it on Facebook, or, social media. We want everyone calling in, up to 1,000 people. Then people call in and I introduce and explain how it happens, and everybody goes on mute. And then I walk people through and guide them through the healing. It's so powerful, the experience. I usually leave these things like shaking with just the incredible energy and love.
Wow. That's awesome. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for putting that together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for everything that you are doing. It's really inspirational.
Thank you. We try here.
Yeah.
Little by little. But I really appreciate you spending your time here today with me and your patience with my questions.
Oh, I love them. They were great.
I hope that you enjoyed our conversation today and that you learned something new. Do you have a question for Dr. Graye? Do you have your own story with medical meditation that you would like to share with us? We would love to hear from you. Let us know how we can be useful in your journey. Email us at info@thebrainpossible.com. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share our podcast if that feels true for you. You may also consider visiting our website for more information on stories, therapies, and products that we think that you will love. As always, thank you for spending your precious time with us at The Brain Possible. See you next week and be well.